Hi friends, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Here's what we're discussing today. One of the goals of the prosecution in this case has been to try to show, to the extent that they can, where the round that hit Helena Hutchins came from. And so far, at least to me, it seems like they have been floundering in that. Now, they continue to show the back end of certain cartridges without being able to tell anything about anything from the back end of a cartridge, because the color of a primer, while it may be different, may not necessarily indicate that it is a live round or a dummy round or anything. Basically, in order to tell what a round is, you have to pick it up and shake it, or you have to know what it is because you put it in there. So all throughout this trial, they have introduced numerous photographs of these cartridges in the down position. And one of the things that I'm finding especially frustrating, and I would find especially frustrating if I was on the jury, is what does that mean? What is that supposed to tell me? Are armorers only supposed to look at the bottom end of a cartridge? Is that the only thing they're concerned with? Or do they maybe look and see if there is a piece of lead on the end of it and does it rattle? I mean, those are the sort of things that, to me, you got to be able to tell and be able to learn basically what kind of round you're putting into a firearm. But every time the prosecution gets up, they run these people through a number of what I would call hoop jumping exercises to talk about the firearms and the ammunition. Now, this lady is a stills photographer, and I am going to present to you the entirety of her direct examination today.
Yes. It's off. Yep.
There we go.
It went off again here. I can turn if you want.
Oh, no, you're fine. But these guys will take care of it. I'm not. I never do.
Yes.
Ma'am, do you recognize this photo?
I do.
Can you tell us the date that this photo was taken?
I believe it was on the 15th,
Of what month?
October.
And would that have been 2021?
Yes.
And do you recognize this person here?
Yes, that's Hannah.
Okay. And who's this person here?
Alec.
And why were you taking this photo?
I just shoot a lot, and I think the behind the scenes is really interesting, what's going on. So they're having a conversation about what's about to happen. And
Okay.
that's it.
Do you know what this is in Ms. Gutierrez's hand?
It looks like the gun belt. I'm guessing for Alec,
Okay.
or a bandolier, one of those.
Okay.
I see a gun in it.
All right. I'm going to zoom in on this photo.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yes.
When you look at, well, tell us what's in that gun belt.
Ammunition and a gun.
And do you notice anything about the center primers of the ammunition that's in that belt?
One is silver and quite different from the other 3, 4.
All right.
So part of my frustration here is that they are not tying any of this together. They're not bringing in somebody to say, this is always going to be a dummy round, or this is never going to be a dummy round, or We know that this is a live round, or this is where the live round came from, and this is how we're going to show you where the live round came from. The fact is, they have pretty much demonstrated that they can't tell where the round that hit Helena Hutchins came from. That is a real problem for them in terms of proving up this case, in my opinion, although it may not ultimately matter to the jury, because by the time they get through with all of these photographs and the showing of all of these cartridges, the jury is probably going to be thinking, why do they keep doing this? Why do they keep showing us these cartridges when they're not really proving to us anything about what happened? This was a photograph from the day of the 15th, October 15th, about 6 days before the actual shooting in this case. And they can't tie that gun, that holster, that bandolier to anything that happened on the day of the shooting. They're not even trying. All they're trying to do is show that on different days they had different ammunition in the bandoliers and the gun belts. And in case you probably don't realize this, an armorer is not going to load the firearm from the gun belt, because that's going to make the gun belt look empty. She's going to go into her bag and load from the bag. So what's in the bandolier or the gun belt really is irrelevant. I am quite surprised that the defense is not objecting on the basis of relevance here, particularly to that last question about, did you see anything in there that looked different? She's not an expert. She's not been certified as an expert. Basically, all she can tell you is, yeah, it's got a different color, which the jury can see just by looking at the photograph. So again, if I were on the jury, I'd be like, why are they wasting my time? Get to the meat of what you're trying to show me and get done with it. Now let's take a look at the cross-examination, and essentially what the defense is doing here is they're saying, okay, two can play at this game. If you want to get into irrelevant information, we can get into irrelevant information, or perhaps not information that would require expertise, but which can be stated from observational fact. And so they get into who's the boss, who's running this show, whose circus is it and whose monkeys are it, and that's what these questions dealt with.
Morning, Ms. Kuhn.
Good morning.
Is it true that you were budgeted for 5 days of work for the entire show?
Yes.
Okay. And were you ever tasked with taking any pictures of guns pointing into the camera?
Yes.
Who made you take pictures of guns pointing into the camera?
One of the junior producers, Ryan Smith, emphasized that I should get as many shots of guns pointed into the camera as possible.
Okay, so then you were told to do this on many occasions?
Maybe twice.
When those photos are taken of guns pointing into the camera, are they actually pointed at you, directly at you then?
When it's the gallery shoot, yes, and those guns have to be checked by the armor before, which I trusted was happening because she was nearby.
When filming in New Mexico, did it appear to you that Alec Baldwin was the boss?
Yes.
Did you ever see anybody tell Alec Baldwin no?
No.
And in terms of the structure, did it appear that other producers were below him?
Yes.
Did you see other producers on the set frequently?
Yes.
How frequently did you see other producers on set?
Pretty much every day I was there.
Were the other producers sometimes even in some of the photos that you were taking?
Yes.
You had to Photoshop them out?
No, I don't do Photoshop.
Okay. What about Gabrielle Pickle? Did it appear to you like, well, first, did you have interactions with Gabrielle Pickle?
Very little, just the initial deal.
Did it appear to you, in your perception, that the budget was a major concern to Gabrielle Pickle?
That's her job. She's the line producer, I believe, and so she has to come in according to whatever the budget is.
Okay. Do you recall believing that she was trying to be cheap, to cheap everybody down?
On the lower tier, lower budget shows, that's what they all do.
And that's what you observed from Gabrielle Pickle on this show?
I didn't get involved with her about everybody else's deal, just my deal, and I just made a deal with her, and that was it.
Okay, but I'm trying to get at your perception of her and whether, in fact, I'm not sure if you're quite answering. Did you believe that she was cheap, cheap, cheap?
I don't have an opinion.
Do you remember testifying or making statements about your opinion of her previously where you said she was cheap?
Well, that was the nature of this show. It was a low budget tier.
Okay, and I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about your opinion about Gabrielle Pickle and whether you once believed she was cheap, cheap, cheap.
I don't recall if I said that, then I said that.
Would it refresh your memory to look at a transcript of your pretrial interview in this case?
If I said it, then
Okay.
I said it. I mean, that was the overall feeling with everybody. Everybody's always trying to get more money. That's just the way it goes.
Okay, thank you. Were you actually in the church at the time of the shooting incident in this case?
I was.
And do you recall ever seeing Hannah Gutierrez in the church at that time?
I do not. I saw her outside.
Would you agree with me that after lunch, right before the shooting, everybody on set was rushing to get the set all up and going?
I would agree with that.
I don't believe I have any other questions for you. Thank
Now,
you.
at the time that cross-examination was done, I thought, that's a pretty good cross-examination. They got a lot of stuff in about Baldwin and about rushing around and about one of the people being cheap, although how that didn't draw a relevance objection, I will never know. But at any rate, they got some good information in, and I thought, well, she did a pretty good job. I mean, obviously they're pointing guns at the camera, and of course she's behind the camera. So again, that sort of underscores the whole ethic of not having any kind of sense about the rules of firearm safety on the set. But now, anytime you put evidence in, there is always a chance that the other side is going to go at you with some evidentiary jujitsu. So watch what happens.
Ms. Kuhn, I want to ask you a couple questions about taking photos of guns pointed at the camera. You indicated that you thought that Ms. Gutierrez had checked the gun.
I believed so.
Let me ask you, did Ms. Gutierrez check the gun in your presence?
Not that I recall.
And how many movie sets do you think you've worked on that had armorers?
Over a dozen.
In your experience, does the armorer generally check the gun in the actor's presence or the assistant director's presence?
Yes.
Did that happen in this case?
I didn't see that. I also came into the church a little bit later.
And I'm not talking about inside the church. I'm talking about with you when you were taking those photos.
Right. I just don't recall. I wasn't paying attention to that. I was paying attention to just documenting what was
Okay.
going on.
Well, would you recall if Ms. Gutierrez showed you the dummy rounds and shook them for you when she put them
Yes.
in the gun?
I would recall that, but I don't.
Okay. So is it your testimony that that did not happen?
I don't know. I don't know if she checked them. It's not my job.
She didn't check them in front of you?
No.
Okay, understood.
So that was a fairly impressive display of verbal judo there, turning the they pointed the guns at the camera routine into, well, did you see the armorer check the chambers to make sure what was in there? But interestingly enough, the problem with there's just so many times when the defense counsel should be jumping up and objecting, particularly to the part about the dummy rounds. There's absolutely no requirement that the gun had to be loaded with anything in order for her to take pictures of guns pointed at the camera. A lot of times what they're looking at is simply the front part of the gun without necessarily showing what's in the chambers. So to me, it seemed like an odd thing to have this witness come in and testify. So I think the only reason that she was called to testify was simply to lay a foundation for that photograph of that bandolier. Apparently, at the end of this, there's going to be an attempt to weave all of this into a tapestry of, Hannah was negligent, and I'm not sure that at the end of the day, they're actually going to be able to pull that off. I'd be happy to be wrong. I'd be happy to be right. It doesn't really matter. I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm just saying that at this point, if I was on the jury, I'd be a little bit frustrated with the pace of these examinations and the evidentiary value of what's being done. I think overall, probably the most important thing that came out of this particular witness was her testimony that, yeah, Alec Baldwin was in charge and nobody ever told that guy no. Again, that may have an impact on the jury and it may not, but we'll have to find out. So that's what I have for you today. Not as much, I think, as I've done in the past, but this was just one of those things that when I went through it this morning, I thought, wow, they don't have the respect for this jury that they need to have. And that's on both sides. I mean, both sides have asked dumb questions and unnecessarily prolonged evaluations of witnesses, or examinations of witnesses, I guess I should say, during this trial. And that is always annoying to me because it does a disservice to the jury. I have always tried to ask questions at a trial in an orderly and logical manner and get to the meat of what I needed from that witness and then get out of town. And apparently not everybody does that. I wish more people did. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Or if you'd like, you can email me at the address above. Please be sure to put in the head or the subject matter, question for JD or question for Tony, so that I know it's a question from one of my viewers and I won't go bypass it. I get somewhere between 575 and 600 emails a day on several different email addresses that I have for different lines of work that I do. So I would really appreciate it if you would like to have a reply, if you would put that in there. That would make a big difference for me. Thanks again for watching. If you have the opportunity today, go out of your way, do something nice for somebody, and then come back down here and meet me at the beach tomorrow, and we'll talk about something else interesting. Have a great day. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.